over here. Yes, and hurrah! Here we are. It's what you've all been waiting for, I'm sure, at least three of you. I've been doing like voiceover sort of style films as reviews and things instead because I had nowhere to shoot my little videos. I need my little horror space, man. Like, got my my little characters and stuff. Give you something to look at other than me on the set. But this is my set. What do you think? Tell me what what do you think about it? Do you like it? Do you like my little characters? I got a new little Leatherface here, Living Dead doll for Christmas. Thank you, Mama. So yeah, welcome to my new studio. This is You can't really see it. Maybe I'll put a photo up in the comments or not in the community section. But this is a piece of art of Freddy Krueger. You can't really see him there, but it was been signed by Ricky Dean Logan, Jennifer Rubin, Ron Grady. Oh, who was he? Robert Russler. That guy's a legend. I love that guy. And Kelly Jo Minter. She was in the fourth one. She's one of the only people to have ever survived a Freddy film and not get killed at the end, sort of thing. So I don't know. Look that up. But yeah, welcome. And today we are going to talk about the Saw news that we have been getting bit by bit. I haven't done anything on it because really I like to cover quite a bit in my films, and they have only been trickle feeding us really small bits. But new direction, new a visionary has come forward. They've cast a couple of people, which is a very risky thing to do. Their risky choice, in my view. They have put a director in the chair, and they've given us some tidbits. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about it all. We're going to talk about it all here right now, and I'll keep you updated going forward too. Let's jump into it. So for those of you that didn't know, Saw is on its way. It is due to be released in May. It's a new Saw film. It was supposed to be being released a week before Halloween, but they've now decided to move it to May. Maybe they've progressed quicker than they thought with the shooting of it. It has started to film, but really it might be because Halloween Kills is also coming out that week. So maybe they didn't want the competition. They didn't want to take away from any potential, should I go see this, should I go see that sort of scenario. So most people will go see both, especially the horror fans. I know I'll be there. But yeah, for those of you that didn't know, Lionsgate were a little bit perplexed about what to do with the Saw franchise, seeing as how Jigsaw, that was released in 2017, wasn't quite the blockbuster they were hoping for. I watched it. I thought it was all right, but it felt a lot lower budget. Didn't seem to have the it was a little bit Hollywood. It didn't seem to have the dark and gritty, abandoned style filming that the original ones have. So mid last year, in walks Chris Rock, the comedian, to talk to Lionsgate about his vision of how they could refresh the Saw franchise, and they just gobbled it down. They went for it. They didn't even talk about the thrashing out the details. It was, let's get working on this project straight away. So they must have loved it so much, and I am intrigued to hear what that idea is. So Chris Rock, having but given them his story outline, they then ran with it, and he has recently said that it won't be scary as such, but more a horrible, maybe a gory film which will have some humor. Now, this worries me slightly because none of the Saw films intended to have humor, and I love horror comedy, but I'm not sure that I would be happy taking something that's not a horror comedy and is quite uncomfortable to watch on many occasions and making it into something more light-hearted, which is what will happen with a character possibly like Chris Rock in it. And then what do they go and do? They go and decide to cast Samuel L. Jackson in the movie too, who I think is a little bit um, one-dimensional. I heard someone say that was quite a good way of describing it. It doesn't have, as much as he is quite good on screen, it is just Samuel L. Jackson's character that you get. You don't get different type. He's not a Christian Bale type actor who is very diverse. You get the same guy in the film every time, and I don't know any film, correct me if I'm wrong, that he has actually not been just the Samuel L. Jackson character. So it's likely him, Chris Rock, who's fairly much the same in all his films, and Samuel L. Jackson, who's definitely the same in all his films, are going to be the humor element to it. And that's worrying, isn't it worrying? But there is some good news. They decided to give the director's seat to Darren Lynn Bousman, which he directed Saw 2, 3, and 4, wrote as parts of them, or if not all of one of them. I co-wrote some of them anyway. But his films were pretty good. I think they started to go a little bit downhill after his direction. He is very much into the abandoned warehouse style, green ambient light, that sort of thing, which is something that was quite branded with Saw. So not a lot of his films have comedy in them. He's a weathered horror director, and that is great news. And I thought he did a great job with the Saw films. It is unusual to get someone to direct the films that has already had a massive chunk of the influence of the franchise get, unless they were really happy and were actually they actually decided not to go with the people that were last used. Um, so that is quite good news. He might keep a lid on the amount of comedy being used. It's being co-written by uh, Pete Goldfinger, who sort of tips the balance towards the comedy a little bit more. He is a horror writer. He's wrote several horror films, but they have a fair amount of cheesiness in them, if that's a word. He loves his cheese. He's done like Piranha 3D. He's done this sort of slapstick horror, um, which are quite enjoyable. But again, we're already risking making this film into too much of a comedy, and then they get someone to write you know, the story or adapt the story from Chris Rock's perspective into the actual film, the actual script, possibly. And he will be writing alongside Josh Stolberg, which is, again, he was with him Piranha 3D and these other ones who, again, you have to think is quite responsible for the amount of cheesiness, considering they're the ones that, you know, wrote the storyline. So, I'm concerned. I have to say, I am going to go see it. I love the Saw films. I don't think I'll be disappointed with it being having a too much comedy. But what I don't want is an It Chapter 2, because they totally fucked that up with trying to cast their net and catch as many people to be interested in this as possible, by bringing in comedians and then throwing bits of comedy through the film. That totally took away from the atmosphere. Maybe they wanted to bring the age down a little bit, but then included a massive sort of bloody scene. It was really all over the place, and I can only presume that they were trying to cast a bigger net, trying to catch more audience because they already had the horror fans involved instead of keeping to them. So I hope that doesn't go this way. So recently on Twitter, Bosman said, Bosman, I think it's Boseman. Boseman, the director, said that this film will be, he's working on the biggest trap he's ever seen in any of the Saw films, and that's quite a claim because there's quite a lot of big ones. You've got the carousel one, you got the one where they're in a shop display window, and there's all these people around. But maybe he means actually physically, mechanically, is the biggest trap he's worked on. But he does also say it will contain one of the most horrible death scenes as well, which go for your life, son. I'm up for that. Um, it could just be a bit of hype, but it was on his Twitter, and it wasn't like an interview or anything. So maybe it's true. Now there has been several images of the set released, leaked inverted commas, um, from the cast and crew or whoever else, Shows you pictures of Samuel L. Jackson and Chris Rock. They're playing detectives, and there's several other fairly well-known people have been cast in there as detectives and you know, hookers and stuff like that. Who knows? Um, but the main characters are Chris and Samuel, and there's some pictures of them online. But one thing that I thought was quite interesting was the name. Now, they have decided, or it's not been official. If you look in some of the sort of more official sources, it's still listed as unknown title. But there has been a lot of rumor, and on the website, the Saw website, they have said that they're calling this film Spiral, which you know, is fine. Not it's fairly imaginative, you know, given that, you know, the spiral on the doll's face, on Billy's face. You've got the spiral in the carousel. We've seen this spiral, this sort of like circus tent style image of a spiral loads of times throughout the series of the films, and so maybe this isn't actually such an you know, it'd probably be related to the film somehow, but Spiral, and then the tagline is from the Book of Saw, so that makes one think what the Book of Saw could be. Probably, if they're not going to bring back Tobin Bell, you know, who played Jigsaw, um, it could be that this is his journal. He's left a journal about all of his traps, his reasons for doing what he did, and someone's picking up the gauntlet, and continuing his work. So you know, that's my first theory and the most likely one, I think. The second theory is that it appears that the film is going to be in the same universe as the original. So it could just be that this book has been written about the Saw legacy, John Kramer, all those things, and someone has decided to use it, or for their own personal sort of you know, they decided to restart the whole thing. You know, they need a reason to refresh it, and they are calling it a reimagining and not a reboot. But on those pictures that we've seen on the set, there was a sticker, a piece of electrical tape that had like a bit of writing on it. I'll put it up on screen, saying Saw 9. Now they would never do that if they wanted to not reboot, but gain popularity for the franchise again. So what I think is, you've got your original Saw films 1 to 8. They called it Saw 9. A lot of people that didn't watch the Saw films, but maybe like Chris Rock and Samuel Jackson, maybe they've generalized the film a little bit, are going to go, do I have to watch all of the Saw films to? And they will put people off. So I think this is now set in stone. These 8 films are set in stone, and they're going off, and they have sort of referred to it as a spin-off of the original Saw storyline. So I think they're in the same universe basically. So John Kramer and everything that has been and gone. I don't think he's going to end up being in this film. I think someone new is going to be the new antagonist, and I think he's going to pick up the work, and it's going to follow that storyline. Kind of like, you know, the Marvel films, you have the sort of Avengers are the main gathering of them all, but they have their own branches off. This is a branch off in the same universe where someone else is maybe also causing havoc. That is what we think the official title is. But the project sort of name was given the organ donor. This is interesting in itself. Is that a bit of a hint, or maybe what they initially come up with based on Chris Rock's sort of vision? Someone has maybe doing the Saw thing, like copycat killings, but he is taking the organs as well, taking organs. Or another theory is that one of the traps. Now we've seen, I think it was in Saw 3, but they do blur together, man. I mean, I haven't gone through and pinpointed each film. I can vaguely remember. I mean, I do like them and I've seen them all, but you've generally watched the first couple, and then, so I might go through it all again and I'll let you know. But I think it's more likely that the organ donor was a trap, or is a trap, and that's mainly the main part that he's pitched, to tell, you know, he's come up with this new trap himself, and I think they liked it and they want to still need Goldfinger to write the story. So Chris Rock possibly just give them a couple of his ideas, the way he's seen this being done, and they've got someone writing it. But is the organ donor a trap, or is this the new antagonist's thing? I think it might be a trap. And we've seen it, as I said, we've seen it in, I think it saw three or so four, where there was two people either side of a mesh fence, and they had to sacrifice parts of themselves to survive. And one of them was going to survive out the two. It was kind of like a competition, and there was a big fat guy, and he cuts welts of the whole fat off himself. And this girl decides to cut her arm off. That's kind of like an organ donor idea, but I think it may be a bit more internal, like organs. You have to sacrifice your organs, maybe to save someone else or save yourself. That's possibly the way I think it's going to go. I love all this stuff. I love the twists and turns the film had. It was all the way through the season. Yes, yeah, I know. Some of them are a bit rubbish and a bit of a stretch to say that this person then continued and that person died and then this person continued. That's fine, but it's film, and I love the twists and turns it takes to try and keep you guessing. I love thinking that I have guessed it, and the conspiracies around it all make it a lot more fun. And it could be that this is why they're tagging us along, with the Saw spiral from the Book of Saw, and then the giving you the project name, which is the organ donor. But on set, they then write Saw 9. So does that make you think that it is actually going to be part of the series? I mean, what's likely with that is they've called it Saw 9 uh, because that's easy, but it isn't actually Saw 9. It's just the ninth one that they've made. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I also think that the Book of Saw may refer to a reference point for people that haven't seen the original Saw films. It's a way of filling in a bit of history. So there might be news readings you've seen in films where they do a news, like Free from Hell, it showed you the news. So in theory, you didn't really have to watch the other two. You just knew that these three people were in jail because they did horrible stuff, and then it pick up from there. So it may be a way of sort of jumping people to the future without having to watch the old ones, similar to why they probably haven't called it Saw 9. So the book is probably a reference point. Um, where they flash through or someone reads it and explains to someone else what it was about, what happened with John Kramer and all of the killings and the traps, to bring you up to speed. So that's kind of it's going to be a journal, it's going to be a book. We know that, but how it's going to be used or what it's going to be used for, that's another side theory, could be that this guy's found his old journal. He bought a house and it's in the cellar, a bit like some of the old films say, and he's found it and he's going to continue it, like Evil Dead style. He's going to start reading it in incantations and stuff. Nah, not really, but that would be pretty cheesy. I think they need to come up with something a bit more special than that, and maybe it's just a reference point for you to be able to jump in with both feet rather than having to think you've got to watch what else and not know what's going on because they've given you the important bits because someone was reading, oh, John Craig, you heard about this guy? Like he's doing it. So it could be a reference point. It could be his journal. It could be a book that's been written about him, and this is somewhere else in the world, someone continuing it. Either way, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I think Lionsgate knew that they had shat on it with Jigsaw. Don't forget this: the whole franchise has grossed them over $1 billion. So they weren't going to just say, "Yeah, let's stop after that." Let's just end now. Let's just fizz out. They were, I'm sure, open to the idea. Maybe they hadn't even thought about it yet because it's only been a couple of years. Maybe they were thinking, right, let's do some other projects. We'll come back to Saw when we've listened to a few good fan theories and stuff like that. But Chris Rock walked in with this idea and they chowed down on it. So they think, no, let's get this thing pumping again. Let's get viewers to come along and watch it. That's probably what they're thinking. So they weren't going to leave it when it's making that such money. It has a fan following that they could upset if they include too much comedy in it. You might lose, like 50% of your fan following by doing that. But then if you're going to gain more than you lose for doing it, then it's a business at the end of the day. It might be worth it to them, but I don't think so. I think they should just make films for the people that'll appreciate them, not just the general viewers. Guys, thanks so much for clicking this video. I will try and keep you up to date on all of the Saw information that comes out. I might just do a couple of little lively ones now. I've got enough followers that I can go live and just talk to you while I'm like at work and stuff. It might be a way of me keeping this channel going a bit better. I had to make all this film set, and I'm in my loft. This is the attic. I could have just did it in my attic because it looks terrible up here. This bit looks great, but the rest of it looks like things are hanging off and electrical cables everywhere. It might have been like a bit of a spooky setting, but I didn't want to do that. I don't like that anyway. So hopefully things are a bit better. We can do a bit more talking. Tell me what you think down in the comments. What's your theories on how they're going to play this new Saw film? If you get any news, if I've missed anything, put it down there. We'll do a shout out, and I'll do a video next to sort of cover it. But I am going to keep on bringing you information on it. My next film will hopefully be a review of Color Out of Space. Watched it a night or two ago. I'm not going to say anything. You can probably tell, by how I'm looking, whether I liked it or not. Yeah, I really want to do a review on that because it's from the production company that Elijah Wood runs, and it's Nicolas Cage after Mandy, which I freaking love. Mandy. Mandy was just loved it so much, man. Like, what were the monsters anyway? Who cares, man? It's psychedelic. It's funny. It's weird. Nick Cage is at his best, isn't he? At his best for a long time. Not seen him act like that for a long time. Some Broken Arrow maybe and stuff like that. He wasn't in Broken Arrow. Face Off. Sorry, that's what I meant. But he definitely was at his best in this, and he won the show. That definitely. So, Color Out of Space. Did he do it again? Did they do it again? It's a Lovecraft adaptation, so which I kind of like the guy. Maybe I'm biased about the film. You'll have to find out in the next episode. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and let's talk about Saw.